Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Continuing on the idea of reading encounters, scary encounters that people have had with some cryptids and monsters out there, I thought I would do yet another video here following up from the one I just did the other day. So the other day I did a video that was titled 4 Scary Skinwalker Encounters that people have had. I thought let's go ahead and let's share 4 more scary Skinwalker encounters here, and then I'll give my thoughts on it afterward. It seems like a lot of people really liked that video. Got a good number of quick views, it got some good comments, and then also some thumbs up. So definitely it resonated with a lot of people. And who knows, maybe I'll branch out and start doing other ones like other cryptid encounters or aliens, UFO encounters, ghost spirits. Just start reading some of those specific experiences that people have had and then give my thoughts on it afterward. But let's go ahead and let's start off with this one here. Again, 4 more scary skinwalker encounters that people have had. Now this first tale is titled, "It Had a Dog's Body but with Human Hands and Feet." Already it seems scary enough, doesn't it? So here's what this user posted. They said, "I was spending a month with my cousins at my grandma's house. It was August and my cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15 and I was the oldest, being 15. I was staying with a 10, 13, and 14-year-old. We stayed up telling scary stories often. But one night, a few weeks in, we decided to make a campfire out back. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's a thick forest with man-made paths throughout. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement is actually underground. That isn't important until later on, though. So we're towards the east side of her yard, in a smallest patch of open land, and you couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there were probably 3/4 a mile to each side of us that belonged to my grandma. Now it was maybe 11 at night, and we were playing truth or dare after telling scary stories, and my 14-year-old cousin dared me and the 13-year-old to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. I said yes right away, as I wasn't easily scared and rather level-headed, but my younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. We didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and we could see enough to not die. And so we were walking through the paths for about 5 minutes and could barely see the fire through the trees when we decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large dog-like creature hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What I remember most was how its eyes were so blanking bright white. And it was humanoid, dog-shaped, but with a human-like head, but a dog-like body, but also human hands and feet. It looked right at us, and I know I was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away the opposite way from us, towards a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually, my cousin and I screamed bloody effing murder, and the other cousins and my grandma ran to us. I don't remember much here because I was really disoriented and I couldn't think properly, but I did wake up in bed, so I assumed that I was brought up to the house. All the kids slept in a basement in a big room with sliding glass doors to the outside, as the room was on the side that wasn't underground. My bed was pressed against a big glass window, and I could see my cousins playing outside down below. This house is in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly even in the end of August, and there was a slight breeze, so I put on a jacket and ran to join them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When I got down, I could tell they weren't playing, but rather running to get my grandma. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped up. That night, we went to bed early. I woke up at maybe 2 in the morning because I felt something hit my head. My cousins were all sitting on the double bed opposite of me on the other side of the room, and there was one bunk bed and 2 double beds. The double beds for me and my 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at me. The 13-year-old nodded his head towards the window, and I froze. They all looked afraid. I turned my head slightly to the side, and I saw a really messed up looking face pressed up to the window with gaping eyes looking down at me. I screamed so effing loud, it bolted. My grandma called the police after I told her what happened, and they found nothing. I went home after that, and I have never been there during the night again. And that's pretty much it. That's what ends this tale with regards to another encounter yet again with a dog-like creature, dog-like body, but now with human hands, and then it had a human-like head, and then also human feet. Pretty creepy stuff. Interesting that this took place in Michigan, too. All the other encounters I've mentioned have been in areas that are usually for Indian reservations out there in Nevada and so on. Here, though, it's definitely happening in the colder part of the U.S. Goes to show that if this thing truly was a skinwalker, it's out there throughout multiple parts of the country, even in places one normally wouldn't think of. Pretty creepy, too, how you had this thing that was just there, encountered in that forestly-like area, and then later on it followed them to the actual house itself, pressing whatever type of eerie-looking face it had right to the window, watching them for who knows how long until they woke up and then saw, obviously, it right there. Freaky stuff. I could totally understand why they didn't be there, why they weren't there afterward. Now, the next tale happens to do with this. It's called It Was Neither Fully Human Nor Fully Animal. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. In July 2014, near Gallup, New Mexico, I had my first and only encounter with a skinwalker. Before this, I used to say, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I'm a believer now. What I saw was not fully human nor fully animal. I was moving. I had just completed the cleaning and was with my 10-year-old son. We had called it a night and we were headed to our new place. As we walked out the front door, I saw a figure move from behind my neighbor's car to a nearby tree that stood between our apartments. It did not have red glowing eyes, snarling teeth, or a rotten smell, but it did move quickly, but not quickly enough to avoid the light from a nearby light post and the porch lights. It didn't even look at me or come toward me. It moved as if it was trying to avoid being seen. I was within 15 feet of it, but I did not look back to fully inspect it. But what I saw was a wolf-like animal that sort of resembled the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, just not as cartoonish. It had brown fur that was completely covered. It wasn't a pelt. It was a very large wolf. It didn't have any human traits except that it walked on its hind legs. It cowered behind a tree as we got into our vehicle. And when we got in, I asked my son, "Did you see that?" Thankfully, he hadn't. My brother-in-law insists that it wasn't a skinwalker because I would never have seen it. But to this day, I can picture what it looked like, know they exist, and pray that I never encounter one again. And that's it. That's pretty much that short but sweet encounter associated with this skinwalker. Now this one happened there in New Mexico. Again, as I was mentioning a minute ago, most areas out there that are more traditional when it comes to skinwalker encounters, pretty creepy too. Now, in this case, it was larger than some of the other encounters, almost like they said the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. You can picture something like that looking almost towering. Interesting, though, that yet again, these things seem to just dart around as soon as they're spotted, like they don't want to be seen. And in this case, it was moving in between apartment complexes behind a tree, and that it was cowering from them or trying to make sure that it wasn't looked at or wasn't found. Again, it's an interesting notion because normally one sees encounters with skinwalkers being a lot much scarier. I like the visualization too that this guy painted when it came to having this happen nearby his apartment complexes, because I live in apartment complexes, and yes, there are trees in between the actual buildings themselves, so I could totally visualize at night how that would appear in those brief spurts of light. To see something like this, you thought you saw something that looked like it did, and then you're questioning yourself afterward. At least in this case, there wasn't any true scary encounter like something bad happening. Next one is simply called The Grove. So let's go ahead and let's share this entry here. So here's what this user posted. This didn't happen to me, but a very close friend of mine. I've heard a lot about coyotes and skinwalkers and had a weird experience or two with coyotes. Creepiest was waking up to my sleeping bag being surrounded in paw prints without ever hearing them during the night, but never anything paranormal, so to speak. Patrick's story, however, my friend, kept me from going back to a favorite backcountry secret stash. So he was leaving the area one morning, had been camping there a couple of days, and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision, but never overt. He loaded up his truck and started to drive down the wash over there by the fire road. And at the end of the wash, he could see the coyote following him. When he pulled up onto the road, it was now running next to him. Now he was freaked out, so he sped up. He said he was going 35 miles an hour or so, and it was easily running along beside him. Definitely not possible. And when he looked back, the coyote was running on two legs and was wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. An instant later, it was a person wearing coyote fur, now keeping pace up with his truck. And then when he looked again, it was gone. We never ever went back to that grove after that. And then that's it. That's the short, also but sweet story associated with this Skinwalker encounter. Number one, interesting that this didn't happen to the main author, but it occurred to his friend. Obviously, he knew about a place that they went to for miscellaneous purposes, and so the fact that this happened at their favorite backcountry secret stash just points that who knows how long they were there while this thing, whatever it was, potential skinwalker, was there the entire time too. Interesting too that this thing was there in a peripheral vision, close by but never far enough, always just within a short distance. And of course, the freakiest part was now all of a sudden it was almost chasing that guy in his truck and then making sure that it could catch up to him very easily before he almost saw it morph into what looked like something involving legs and then finally a person, a human that was doing this. And then of course it was gone afterward. Freaky stuff. I can attest to being out there in a backcountry area where coyotes are, and it is pretty freaky. I was there over in Good Springs, Nevada. If you haven't been there before, they have a world famous haunted saloon called the Pioneer Saloon. Outside of the saloon, though, at night, there's nothing. There's nothing surrounding it. There's Good Springs, which is kind of nearby, but they have a very small population. Here, though, at night, all you see is just blackness surrounding you. There are no nearby lights. Other than the street lights, that's about it. Everything surrounding the street lights is pure pitch black. But you do hear the coyotes. They are nearby. You can hear them scampering by. You can hear their wails. It freaked me out because I couldn't hear them. I couldn't see them, but they could see me, obviously with their excellent vision. And so who knows how close they were to me when I was out there taking pictures and so on. And I could just imagine this experience involving the skinwalkers. Luckily, I don't think Good Springs, Nevada has any skinwalkers out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably go back. But that's at least the closest type of experience I had. Now, the last one is titled, It Was Like It Knew We Knew What It Really Was. Interesting title, scary stuff. So let's go ahead and let's talk about it here. I decided to join my bestie Karen for a 3-day stay at her grandmother's place on the res. Her grandmother lives near a place called Tuba City, Arizona, in the middle of nowhere but surrounded by rural homes. We go to college together, and I was kind of interested to know about Navajo tradition. The first day we stayed, it was pretty chill, nothing out of the ordinary, but then her grandma, who wasn't that old, by the way, around 67, said that a stray dog came out of nowhere and wouldn't leave. To me, it did that kind of strange, and it looked ugly. Black, shaggy coat, looked like a mix between a German Shepherd and a lab. That night, we were watching a movie in the living room, which had big windows that looked out into the front where the cars are parked. Nothing fancy, with the curtains wide open. Grandma was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and we were watching a movie, and next to the window is a medium bookshelf and where the DVDs are kept. So Karen went to put back a DVD we had just watched, but she freaked out because that stray black dog was now staring at us through the window, standing on top of the wood box outside. Not something normal dogs do from my point of view or from hers. Usually my dog, which is a house dog, scratches the door to be let in. Res dogs aren't house dogs, and dogs inside houses are frowned upon in Navajo tradition. They're meant to be outside to protect the house and the owner. So the other dogs seem to stay away from it. Karen opened the door and yelled at it to get off the box. It ran off and then went behind the shed. And so we went to Tuba City to get some groceries and came back to the house. The dog was nowhere to be seen, nothing unusual. Grandma went to visit some people, so it was just Karen and I. And so about 5 o'clock, we heard someone trying to open a door. Both of us looked out since there had been no car heard and no dogs barking. And then looking out the living room window to the door, there was that same dog trying to open the door with its paws. 2 paws were wrapped around the brass door knob, and it was standing on its hind legs. I thought that was weird, but wasn't really freaked out, but Karen was. She opened the door and chased it off. Grandma came back later and Karen told her, and Grandma didn't like what she heard. So we got ready to sleep, and we slept in the spare bedroom since it has 2 beds. One window with the curtains open a little, and we turned off the light, but there was a sound coming from on top of the roof. There was this pitter-patter footsteps of scratching sounds and panting. It then sounded like it jumped off onto the large plastic water barrel that they had. At first we heard what sounded like barking, but as it grew louder, the other dogs seemed to be barking at something also. And then all of a sudden, something was running around the house barking, and it was no dog. Nope, it wasn't a dog. This barking sounded human, a deep male voice, barking like it knew that we knew it wasn't a dog. It went something like woof, woof, ruff, something along those lines, just exactly like that, adding the W's, R's, and the A's. Then it panted again by the window, and we started freaking out. Karen decided to, in my opinion at least, which was stupid, open the curtains to look out, and there was the stray dog on its hind legs looking into our bedroom, but this time it stunk, and what I thought were 2 black holes in the neck and another pair of eyes twinkled. Think of those ugly, glossy spider eyes staring at you, and the paws were deformed, looking like hands with overgrown, somewhat thick and sharp fingernails. Again, both of us screaming and shutting the curtains closed. Grandma came running through the door, and seeing it, first thing she did was grab ashes from the fireplace. She loaded 3 shells into the shotgun from under the bed and blessed herself in Navajo, and then went outside to shoot at it, yelling in Navajo about how the thing wasn't welcome there and to get the hell out of there, for it to go linger somewhere else. Then, both being traditional, the next day they called a medicine man to come over and put cedar in. He prayed over everyone with cedar smoke and an eagle feather, blessed the place, made us eat bitter herbs called eagle's gull or something like that, and then gave me an arrowhead. Apparently I needed to carry one for protection, and a little pouch called corn pollen. Seems to work pretty well. The medicine man said the dog was a skinwalker, which in Navajo is a long word, but I call them Yoshis. The body of a stray dog, which was killed by the skinwalker, made an illusion so we wouldn't know it wasn't a real dog. He also said that Yoshis tend to harm people by using some sort of human bone straw to spit at someone. think spitballs, only deadlier, and then get human bones into them. Doctors can't detect it, but the medicine man that day pulled a piece of human skull out of grandma's right shoulder. It was pretty big, about 2 inches long and 1 centimeter thick, and it was real because we watched him pull out of her, and then that was it. That was intense. And that's where the story ends associated with this one. Easily the most scariest one out of the all four, because not only did you have this thing obviously working towards let's say going after these people over several days, several hours, in fact, that also ended up actually attacking them. And it ended up attacking the grandma as well, who knew more information about skinwalkers, what it was, and then also how to protect it, involving how to protect themselves, involving using that makeshift set of bullets, involving ashes, and then screaming at it in Navajo. Eerie stuff. And then again, it goes to show that this was straight at a reservation. In this case, a place called Tuba City there in Arizona. Pretty freaky stuff. The way this thing was just also running around and then making sure that the other dogs were nowhere near it. That's the first I've ever heard too about anything involving bone, like in this case using bone almost like in a spitball manner to go into someone. Someone might have to explain that though, why that is. The author didn't explain it. Is it something along the lines of a curse? Is it something where once it's in someone's body, it causes something bad to happen within them? Is it some kind of radar? Who knows? Like internal radar, so that way that skinwalker knows where this person is at all times. Someone again might have to explain that at least. But the fact that this thing was again also trying to turn the doorknob, when you see a dog doing that, that's just so unnatural. You do not want to have anything like that near you. It's pretty freaky stuff, scary stuff all around. And also that it knew that these people knew it was there and what it was doing to them. It almost seemed to enjoy as far as the scary experience it was creating. But that's pretty much it. That's everything associated with these 4 more scary encounters with these skinwalkers. If anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. What about those of you, once again, have lived, or know someone that lived in these reservations? Seems to be a lot of encounters associated with skinwalkers there. I would love to hear what your thoughts are too. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.